Welcome back to another episode of Your Fucking Welcome. Today, I wanted to share with you a quick little story inspired by, believe it or not, Tinder that kind of happened over the past couple of weeks. And I felt like it was a really important lesson for me and therefore for you when it comes to just how you want things to go in your life, in your businesses, in your relationships, all of it. And something that I keep saying lately to anyone who I talk to, anyone who will listen to me, is it's all the same shit. And I just keep learning and understanding on deeper levels how everything, business, life, relationships, all of it, it's all the same concepts. It's all the same understandings, essentially, right? But again, some of them come easier than others. And so it's just always funny to me where I'm able to see something new that felt hard previously through the lens of how I would handle something in business, something that feels easier to me, right? And being able to apply it. And every time I do that, I feel like I learn such really wonderful lessons. And so what happened a couple weeks ago, or I guess it was about a week ago at this point, is I've been on Tinder more so lately. I'm on Bumble, but I don't like having to message guys. Like, I really want them to message me. In a perfect world, I wouldn't be on Tinder at all. Like, I feel like I'm in this, I don't know, surrendered place where I just want to be pursued and I just want to be courted, if you will. And so, like, especially when it comes to the apps, and I'm on a couple other ones, but like when it comes to the apps, I just want to be in a situation where like somebody can message me and actually show me that they're capable of really good conversation, right? All of that. And so the other day I was talking to a couple different guys, and one in particular, like, it was a good conversation. It was actually like somebody had a brain and somebody wasn't just like automatically being like, hey, you want to come over in 5 seconds, right? And I was enjoying the conversation. So we talked for a couple days. It wasn't a love connection, but it was a good conversation. And we stopped talking after a couple days. And it wasn't that I was like in this needy energy about it, although that kind of pinged for me. Like, I kind of observed myself being in that place. But just kind of being like, because I was with my ex for 5 years. I really haven't dated very much since then, since we broke up. And so like, I haven't really like intentionally and on a consistent basis, like online dated, right? Like, I just haven't. And so I was saying to somebody, I was like, I just don't understand, or I'm trying to understand, I should say, the rhythm with all of this, right? Like, what is dating like? Like now I sound like an old lady, but I'm like, do people like start talking, and is it normal to talk every day? Is it normal to not talk for a couple days? Like, I just don't know what the rhythm is, and I don't know like what to expect. I don't know what the expectations are. I don't know, right? I don't know. Like, I'm in this again, it feels foreign, like where I am. And she goes to me, she's like, well, what do you want the rhythm to be? Which is the exact question, of course, that if somebody was talking to me about business, I would say to them, well, okay, what platform do you want to be on? How do you want this launch to go? What do you want to sell? What do you want to do evergreen or, launches, right? Like, what do you actually want? And it was just so funny to me, again, to kind of like remind myself of what I already know to be true, but where I can kind of, when I'm in territory that feels a little bit more new or foreign, kind of let those rules, if you will, or those guidelines, those principles fly out the window, right? I know very clearly in business that what I decide I want and what I believe is going to happen when I set that intention, it's just going to work. Like, there's no other option. There's no other choice. I always use the example still of like when I decided that I was going to really grow my business through my Facebook group, through showing up in my Facebook group. I decided that's how I wanted my business to go. I committed to that. I set the intention around it. I intentionally showed up every day accordingly, and it worked because of course I did, because I didn't entertain any other concept. And so again, this kind of like dating thing, right? I'm like, I can forget temporarily what I want, and I can kind of feel like, oh, I was really enjoying this conversation. Oh, but then it was kind of taken away from me, quote unquote. And so then it's like, that feels a little bit scary, or I feel like I'm on more shaky ground with it, right? Because again, it's not as familiar. It's not as it's not something I'm as comfortable with, right? As compared to business stuff. But the bottom line is, it's my job, I know, to go into every single thing, whether that is me going to the mall and trying to find a dress, whether that is like body stuff, whether that is relationship stuff, whether that is business stuff, in every little teeny tiny thing in my life, it is my job to go into it, deciding and choosing how I want this to go. And the other part of this is that I used to, and I still do, but I'm working on it, I would go into that from a very masculine perspective. This is how I want this to go. So this is the way in which I'm going to force it to go. I'm going to make it go this way. I'm going to try to do my best to control every little piece of this so that I get the outcome that I want. Dating for me feels very different. Just in doing all this work that I've done on myself, in healing these things and looking at these old wounds that I've talked about, I know that I've already talked about it a ton, but I'm very clear on the fact that like I want to be in this place of surrender. I want a man to take charge, to like not kind of wait for my direction. I don't want to be the person who reaches out. I don't want to be the person who establishes the date. I don't want to be the person who pushes things in the right direction, right? I am craving right now that person, that man, whether it's for a couple nights or whether it's for the rest of my life, to really be somebody who steps up and again takes control and allows me to feel safe in the surrender of like, I can rely on that person that they don't need to, again, be told what to do. I'm the boss all day long, right? I don't want to be the boss in a relationship or in just a casual dating situation, right? So to come back to Tinder, I am very clear on the fact that I want somebody who, again, is like somebody who's going to step up, and not in an overly aggressive way, but step up. He knows what he wants. He takes it, right? He goes after it. And I don't feel as though I have to control anything like the rhythm, like the momentum, like the, making it happen and asking him out. Like, I don't want to do that. And the other part of this that is really, really, really important about that is that I have to pay massive attention then to where I know what I want, but I have micro moments where I'm ready and or willing to accept what I don't want, right? Because the moment that we start to question that we can get what we want, the moment that we accept things, even though it's not what we want, we wind up farther and farther away from the truth and the vision of what it is that we actually desire for ourselves. And again, the same is true in business, in my experience. If I say that I don't want to do discovery calls anymore, right? I don't want to do sales calls. I don't want to talk to people on the phone, but I'm doing one here. And then I make an exception for this person. It's not that shocking that I wind up with a business where I still have to do discovery calls because I don't believe that I can get the sales without the discovery calls, right? I have to take a stand for what I want. And I learned that lesson very clearly in business. I have to take a stand for what I want, and I have to not entertain what I don't want, right? Because otherwise it's going to, sure as fuck, it's going to be a lot more likely that I get what I don't want when I entertain it, right? And so again, I just want to reiterate to you over and over again, right? As a reminder, as a micro reminder, right? That every single thing you do on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, in your business, in your life, all of it, right? When it comes to what you want, I want you to just pay attention to where you're not honoring. If I had it all my way, this is how it would go. If I had a magic wand, if I had the picture perfect scenario, this is how the dynamic would be. This is what the rhythm would be. This is what the strategy would be. This is what the steps would be, right? And am I sitting here saying that like you're going to, or I'm going to get every single thing exactly the way that we want it? Probably not, right? But you're going to get a fuck of a lot closer, again, if you at least get clarity on it, right? And take a stand for it and refuse to accept less than what you want. And so I feel like, I know that I've been talking about this a lot, but I also feel like we haven't even scratched the surface because it goes so deep and it's so layered and it's so complex for so many of us because, again, we haven't been taught to honor what we want. We haven't been taught to believe that we could have the great relationship, the sex the way that we want it, the money that we want. Like, that's not the normal way of thinking. And it just feels like it's my job week after week to remind you what nonsense that is, especially in the day and age that we're living in, right? Like, we have technology and all of these things available at our fingertips where, I was reading this Twitter thread, and I'm pissed off at myself for not saving it because it was so good. But it was this man, he was talking about, he's like, guys, you got to step up because, I don't know, 50 years ago, women didn't have to like you. Right? It was a situation where it was just so very much the norm to, marry a man for financial security, and you had the kids and you took care of the baby, and there really wasn't any concept of standing up for what you wanted. And he's like, she's going to have to like you more so, right? Like, she didn't have to like you then. She's going to have to like you now, like you as a human being. So that means you're going to have to step up. That means that you're going to have to actually not just rely on the dynamics that are very antiquated at this point, right? Like, it doesn't work like that anymore. In the day and age that we're living in right now, like, we are not living in a world that our parents grew up in, right? I always talk about this, especially with money mindset, because I think so often, so many of us as entrepreneurs, we're doing this money mindset work, and we're, looking at the blocks, and we're looking at what our parents said to us growing up. And I think all of that work is so valid. But also sometimes I think the really easy and simple shift is that, okay, but like, my dad didn't understand that he could start a sales funnel 40 years ago. And so of course he doesn't see money as easily as like we do now. Like, what is possible for us now was not possible then. So that's fine. They were living with a whole different set of rules and a whole different set of like dynamics and like very realistically, very different opportunities. We don't, right? We're not as restricted as other generations once were. And so we have this, again, this new opportunity, this new chance essentially to really create our realities on a very practical basis, right? Like, I say create our realities, like that can feel so woo-woo, but like the practically on a day-to-day basis, like there are so many things, thanks to largely technology, that like allow us to, again, create the lives that we ultimately want, right? We get to work from our laptops. We get to meet men sitting in our beds at night, sitting on apps, right? So many different things are now available to us that were not previously. And so I just want to really drill that point home in the sense that like, you are entitled, right, to get what you want. And you have to take a stand for that. And I know I keep saying that. I know I do. But I really want you to hear it. And I really want you to embrace it. And I really want you to practice it with every aspect of what you do on a daily basis. Because I really want to be somebody who is, again, taking a stand for women and people in general, right? For not living lives that are so much less than what they want, and being so much less than what we ultimately want, okay? And so again, so much of that starts with you setting intentions around how I want this to go, right? Starting with the things that feel most important for you and truly taking a stand for it and not resigning yourself to stories, that have been passed down to you or restrictions or rules that never had to be yours in the first place, okay? I'll talk to you in the next episode. Bye.